thank you so much for taking the time again.
Yeah.
It's really a pleasure. I want to start off by talking about your brilliant new trio record, your Antala Hale trio, Tough Stuff. So it's quite amazing because it's the first time since the end of Trio Toikiet in 2008 that you're playing in a trio band again, that you're the band leader of a trio. So I was wondering if you could talk a bit about when the idea came about to form a new trio and how the whole thing happened then.
It started with my agent, Yolanda, at ACT Agency. She said, Iiro, I need a trio. And this is completely true. I have been avoiding the piano trio because, as you mentioned, I had a Finnish trio for 18 years, and I was basically the only composer for that. So I wasted all my trio ideas for that. But now it feels the time is right for another trio, and it's really based on around the drummer. I wanted to have Anton Eger, and actually I met him few times in festivals and in backstages, and he always said, "Hey, we should play," and that's always a good indication, that somebody wants to play. And Anton recommended the bass player Connor Chaplin, who was a smart booking, because it really helps when the bass player and the drummer know each other. So three guys from three different countries who have never played before, that's much harder to get down. But Anton and Connor clicked in immediately. I mean, they have been playing for years. So it was quite comfortable for me to put myself in that scenario.
They were band colleagues in Marius Neset's band, if I'm right.
Yes, they already met in Copenhagen many years before Marius Neset band. So Connor was an exchange student from London to Rytmiska Conservatorium in Copenhagen, and they met there. And since then, Anton has really recommended Connor for many different bands. They like to play with each other, and they are a quite perfect combination, actually, because Anton is wild, and Connor is the stable, stabilizing element, but also very explosive soloist. So he can do both very well, accompanying and soloing.
And initially, you thought about asking Dan Berglund from Rimden, and obviously former Esbjörn Svensson trio, and Tom Brookett, but he wasn't available because he's touring all over the world, right?
He's touring, yes. Yeah, at one point, for 3 gigs, I had actually the first version was the Rimden. I had couple gigs with Magnus Öström on drums and Dan Berglund on bass. So the EST rhythm section. We did something in Germany and a short visit to South Korea. Then the second version was Anton Eger and Dan Berglund. Also 2 or 3 gigs. We played 2 nights in A-Train. Yeah, but then I realized that these guys are really booked with Rimden, so I couldn't find any free time slots there. And then the COVID years nothing really happened. No new adventures. So, but since the COVID seemed to fade away, Anton again started calling that, hey, when do we play? So here we are.
Last time we spoke, you said that because you don't want to repeat yourself ever in your career, some people see your career as a bit chaotic or messy, as you said it. So when you thought about going back to the trio format, what did you have in mind?
Well, I had to put that thought away because I guess with this trio, I am a little bit repeating myself, but I still sleep well because because I've done so many different styles within my act years that there's solo piano, there's classical music with orchestra, there's string quartet, there's string trio, there's a duo with Ulf and 3 pianos, and even my own double concerto is now recorded with the violin and piano. So yes, I still realize that my thing is the chaotic musical thing that whenever I'm back in the town, Berlin or Düsseldorf or anything, I have a new project and a new quite surprising project. But as I said, I had to put that aside, and I thought that, well, maybe I can kind of try to recreate the Trio Tökäät sound, and it is quite. In some ways, it has same elements than Trio Tökäät. So not a traditional jazz trio. Quite fusion. I mean, fusion is such a dangerous word, but I mean there is lots of elements of fusion, and it really is it sounds the music that I grew up with, the jazz in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. So that is my my idea of a piano trio. Yeah.
So in a sense, a continuation.
It is a continuation, yes, and actually there are some same tunes in a different format that Trio Tökäät used to play. But that's all. That's, I mean, the funny thing is that Anton is 40, maybe he's 44, and I'm 54, so he's 10 years younger. So he used to be a Trio Tökäät fan when he was young. When he was around 15, we had already put out 2 or 3 albums with Trio Tökäät. So he came to our gig in Molde as a 15-year-old drummer, and he bought all the albums, and he's been listening those for years. So it was actually Anton who requested that we should do this from Trio Tökäät. So there's 2 or 3 Trio Tökäät tracks with different names.
But there's also, when I would listen to it for the first time, I was like, one moment. The track Cabaret Perdu, I hope I pronounce it right, is the theme of Anyone with a Heart, right?
That is the A part of Anyone with a Heart is now Cabaret Perdu. But then after that, it's something else. So I only used the first 16 bars for that, and and then it turns into something else. Yes,
it's amazing.
I think a composer can borrow from himself, you know, and I know some composers who've been doing that a lot.
Self quotations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing because you take it to completely different places. As soon as you realize, one moment, that's that now, all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's completely somewhere else.
Yes. 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 It's a nice melody. I mean, I feel that I could play it some more. Yeah.
Beautiful melody, great, and a great album also.
Thank you.
Anyone with a heart. Now there's also a wild side to the record. There's a lot of ruckus going on. For instance, one of the best titles, also the title itself, "Take One Don't," the second track, which is really a good album, good song title.
Yeah.
Also,
It is. It is. It was actually one of the favorites for the album title, but then the ACT people thought that it's too wild, which I guess it is. Yeah, yeah. That is wild. That comes from my love to, well, two things: the Russian piano music. There's lots of Prokofiev style in that. Prokofiev have similar things in his piano concertos and sonatas. And then there's the tango. You know, the tango is always around in my music, because I used to play a lot of tango, the Finnish tango, and also the Argentinian tango, and also the Piazzolla, what he calls tango nuevo. So I was in all kinds of tango bands when I was 15, 16, 17. And I just love to play tango. So yeah, that combination seems to be working, the Prokofiev tango thing.
and you also did the tango record, "It Takes Two to Tango" with Jukka Perko a couple of
That's
years
right.
ago.
Yeah, yeah. Not all of that is tango, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but some of it.
Some of it, yes, definitely.
And another great contender for the album title would have been "Stockholm Syndrome," which I suppose, or which I suppose I can say is like a little nod with a twist of blink of an eye towards the Swedish jazz, European, Scandinavian jazz, as they call it. Am I right about that? Like the melancholic,
Yes,
atmospheric.
yes, yeah, you're right about that, and it's also a nod and a bow to EST.
Yeah.
It has. I mean, in my Stockholm version, there's no electronics. I guess if Esbjörn would play something similar, he would use all kinds of electronics, and Dan would use his distortion. So none of that is in that tune. But yeah, it is something that I think EST guys would have liked. So yeah, Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah, that's the origin.
I mean, talking about Esbjörn, last time you mentioned that he was quite important for your career in terms that you recommended after Trio Talkie had ended and the trio with the beatboxer ended or was about to end. He recommended you to go to ACT Music and talk to Sigi Loch about doing another
Yes,
record.
yes. He gave me Siggy's phone number. I mean, which I would have gotten from someone else, I'm sure, but I think it had a special meaning when I could say that, you know, hello, this is Ian Rantanen from Finland. I got this number from Esbjörn Svensson. So he kind of he thought that I would fit very well into this label, and I have to tell that he was completely right. I was very lucky to find ACT label which understands me musically. I mean, that is one of the best things that have happened to me. I can quite freely get my ideas on album, and now they are used to the fact that I just keep changing styles, and and there will be new things, and I have to say I'm a little bit proud of the fact that I have brought some orchestra stuff to ACT. The first time I mentioned Siggy that I would love to record the Mozart piano concerto with my impro cadenza, he was like, no way, have you no idea how many recordings there already are of this concerto? I said, yes, I know that every pianist have recorded the Mozart concert, but still, not quite like this. And now I see that they are more open to the orchestra stuff, and many other, not many, but quite few ACT artists are doing stuff with orchestra. So that's maybe my main contribution for the ACT label.
Please excuse me.
No
something in my throat.
Yeah.
But
Red
since
Bull
then,
will, flush it away. Yeah.
Since your first record on ACT,
yeah,
it seemed that every year you came up with a new record, with a new style, with a new project. Every record was good. Every record was different. When we talked last time, you said that you're thinking about slowing down a little bit, that every year, one album per year cycle, and you were just about to celebrate the premiere of the Zauber Melodica in Berlin.
Yes.
What happened to the slowing down? Did you? What's your plan?
Well, there was no new album, I think, 2020 and 20, or I'm not sure. No. 21 was Potsdam Live. The slowing down is not going so well. So last year it was the Veneziana, which was a great project for me, and then this year is the new trio. Yes, I would say that I have a little bit backed up from the idea of slowing down, because now I have ideas for future projects, and I'm more bound to think that, okay, why slow down now? So yeah, but I don't think, I mean, that kind of stuff will not happen again, like the beginning of the ACT years, where there was exactly one album per year. So I'm taking it a little bit slower, but I have some ideas for future projects, and we'll see. At the moment, I'm developing a standard trio, which is something that has been in my mind for a long time. To play the standards, not really arranging them much, just playing the standards in my way with the trio. And as you know, the shadow of Keith Jarrett is enormous. So every time a pianist playing standards, you are compared to that magnificent trio of Keith Jarrett. But I tried to put that aside and just do it. This is something I want to do now, and I think they are the Wiener classics of jazz, really important tunes, and I feel that I have something to contribute to those. So that might be my next projects. Yeah, yeah.
Were you
Already
always
in 2 weeks, I'm playing with Dieter Ilk and Morten Lund in Eupen in Belgium and Basel in Switzerland, and the first German gig will be Bonn Jazz Festival already in September at the Beethoven House, but with different musicians, because those guys can't make that date. So we'll see. I can't say what the regular lineup will be at the moment. So we'll see. And I'm also developing another solo piano program, which is coming slowly. But I think those two things are my upcoming projects.
fantastic? Sounds great. Talking about the standards, I mean, I know that last time we talked about like jazz education, and that you never were like a jazz traditionalist in the sense of that you had too much respect of the things, you know, of what has to be loved in some regards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your relationship to standards? How do you approach them now? And did you enjoy learning them earlier when you were younger?
Yeah, well, I already learned a bunch of standards in my very short period in the jazz school. So I have been to jam sessions and stuff. And now for this project, I'm really trying to think the ones that I love the most. So I tried to pick the ones that have a really, really good melody. The melodical ones are the really the ones that I love the most. So, But Beautiful by Jimmy Van Heusen. Also Polka Dots and Moonbeams by same composer, Jimmy Van Heusen. In a sentimental mood. Then I love to play Charlie Parker bebop tunes, which are not melodic in that sense, but people very rarely play Confirmation or Scrabble from the Apple, these kind of tunes. So I'm picking the ones that have a great melody, or the ones that are a little bit surprising to have, and trying to avoid certain ones that have been overplayed. But yeah, and I try to keep it the way that anyone can come to play that gig. So there will be no arrangements, not like I changed this chord and this harmony and we do it like this. So any professional jazz musician can come 5 minutes before the concert, and we just do it. And I have actually I've been playing practice gigs here in Helsinki, because we have a like a hall, a small concert hall in the building I'm living. So throughout the spring, I have been playing standards every other Sunday with the young Finnish players. So, but I don't have because it's improvised, and it just happens in a moment's notice. So yeah, I don't have a system. Just picking up great tunes, and yeah, and in some weird way, it's been refreshing, and I realized that, yeah, the audience actually, they are digging this. It's quite unusual now that the European players are doing standards, because everybody are doing their own thing you know, own compositions, own repertoire. So yeah. But if you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said, no
Never.
way, no standards. It's not my cup of tea. But yeah, it's funny how we change.
But still no walking bass in the left hand, because last time you said you don't like playing walking bass, you find it boring.
Well, in the standards trio, there's lots of walking bass by the bass player, but
By the bass player, yes,
by
but
the
not
bass
by you
player,
on
yeah.
the
But yeah, in my solo piano repertoire, no walking bass. That's yeah, yeah. I try to, in my solo piano repertoire, I try to be really honest to my roots and my background. And I think Lost Heroes is the best example of that. So that really sounds like a Finnish guy who's been playing lots of Sibelius and has grown up in Scandinavia. So that will come out clearly when I play solo piano, and I try to create that kind of stuff, and walking bass is not part of that.
When I listened through your whole or most of your discography, like the last days, I was wondering, I know this might be a difficult question for the artist itself, but if you had to pick 3 records of your really rich discography, which were cornerstones of your career, which showed the way and which changed everything, which 3 albums would you pick then? Or is it possible to say that?
It's possible, yeah. I would say Chick Corea, Friends, very important album for me. Dave Krusin, Mountain Dance, and the third one would be Jaco Pastorius, Word of Mouth, his second album with the big band. Those 3.
And talking about your own records, when you think about your own music that you put out, which 3 albums would define your career? Which were cornerstones for you?
Lost Heroes, Anyone with the Heart, and My Finnish Calendar. Those 3.
It's fantastic records.
Really yeah, I'm really happy with those 3. I am happy with all the ACT albums, but those 3 stick out. Yeah, and I get lots of comments from
I mean, let's talk about Anyone with a Heart, because you said it's an important record. I mean, it's extremely melodic. It's almost classical compositions in a sense, if I can put it like that. And it's so extremely melodic with so many very memorable melody lines that are approachable, but never, as you once said, never the Richard Kleiderman blink lights, never start blinking.
Yeah, that was my goal. For many years I really have tried to calm down and not playing in this carnivalistic way that I used to, especially in my Finnish trio back in the 90s. So I really love a good melody, and maybe I said this already in the previous interview, but Lars Danielsson's music has really inspired me, especially the first Liberette album is fantastic. So I try to go in the simple direction, and yeah, on Anyone with the Heart, it's quite simple, but it has I think lots of weight. So yeah, that's there is not so much beauty in jazz. I mean, there could be more just pure beauty, you know. Pat Metheny has always been very beautiful musician. His compositions and the way he plays the melodies, there is pure beauty. Also, Keith Jarrett is a very beautiful player, but I don't hear it much in jazz. There's much more of licks and chops and technique and grooves, musicians kind of playing for themselves and stuff like that. So the ones I really dig are the ones who are trying to bring even I mean even a beauty in a classical music sense. That's something I really like. In Tough Stuff, the latest album, there is not so much beauty. I can say that there's the one ballad which is beautiful, and The Waltz is quite beautiful, but the energy is different. So the Hell Trio is not mainly presenting beautiful things, but anytime there's a string instrument with me, I go for these long, beautiful melodies.
I want to ask you about the compositional process for the Hell Trio. As we've said, there's some already existing stuff on it, but when you started composing for it, how did you approach? Did you go back to your earlier records because you said it's in a sense a continuation, or how did you approach it?
There is no system. It's always like, okay, now I have this new trio, and we need music, and then it has to come out. So it's much more. I mean, there is no superstitial level in this. It really comes out from the need of okay, we need at least 2 times 45 minutes, and I need to come up with some tunes. It is like that, but I'm quite good in these kind of situations, because when there's a need for tune, then it comes out more easily from me. That that when I hear in my head that okay, we need at least 4 new tunes, then they will come. If there is no need for tunes, I would not be composing here. It's so difficult. Composing is so difficult. I would not do it voluntarily. So yeah, that's the system. And actually, the first gigs with Hell Trio last year, we started last year October. We had what we call test gigs. So the repertoire was like this. It's always 2 sets always, but the entire first set we played not standards, but the new standards, like music from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So there was Chick Corea electric band piece. There was Still Crazy After All These Years by Paul Simon. There was one James Taylor tune. It was a mix of different things. And then when ACT wanted to record this, they said that, oh, just do originals mostly. And that was the moment that I had to create some new stuff. So I quickly composed a Lotta, Love, the ballad, and Country and Eastern, and the Waltz came in a very short period of time. And the only cover only standard that ended up in the album is the Liberty City by Jaco Pastorius. But for a long time, the repertoire was half of the concert music by someone else, and then the second half of my music. So we needed more material.
So it's interesting that you work well under pressure and under deadlines, it seems.
Yes, and I have never missed a deadline. Yeah, I could not sleep if I would be late in my composition. So yeah, but if there is no deadline, it's very hard. It's very hard for me. One time I had a very slow summer, and I thought that, wow, now I will compose a sonata for violin and a piano. But there was no gig, there was no recording, there was nothing. It was just a strong will that I had, and it's still in my Sibelius program. I think I got 22 bars, and it remains unfinished.
That would, excuse me, that would have been my next question. Do we have a lot of unfinished, unreleased, or whatever things in your archive that you could go back to?
No. The violin sonata is probably the only one. Everything else I have released, so I don't have a archive of unfinished things. I'm really good on demand, that we decide to do this and then I do it. But if it's somehow hazy that we maybe do this someday, so then I can't operate.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a bit about your influences, but not musical influences, because we already have discussed that. But humor is a big side in your work too. And the stereotype when people talk about musicians and humor is always to mention Frank Zappa, because there aren't so many musicians who really celebrate humor appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, because you also did comedy, you did TV, who were your influences? What influenced you as in regards of humor?
Many influences, actually. Charlie Chaplin is I think the most perfect example. And I used to watch Chaplin when I was a kid, and the melancholy, the sadness, and the laughter it's always there. In Charles Chaplin, not so much in the other black and white early comedy. They don't have the touching melancholy, the sadness, but Charles Chaplin captured the both sides. So there's always the sad side of comedy, which is difficult to explain, but it comes from melancholy. That is how it comes out, and I have it in myself. And now when I have studied the lives of many comedians, it turns out that every famous comedian has this dark side, and that is where they have to go to that dark side in order to get material out of it. So there's always some tragic story behind most of them. But yeah, Frank Zappa was funny in his compositions, and he did theatrical things on stage. But I don't. His humor was kind of not really my cup of tea. I mean, he was kind of a rude guy, and there's always the element that he knows better than the audience. He was kind of, putting himself above the audience. I just like the good entertainers and people who are not afraid to entertain the audience a little bit. So I get a lot of ideas from certain stand-up comedians. I look how they do it, and I get influence from, well, Louis C.K., George Carlin, even Jimmy Carr, and Seinfeld, Dave Chappelle. I'm following all these people very closely, and of course there's the Danish pianist Victor Borge, who did like a stand-up comedy with the instrument. So he's brilliant, and yeah, I'm just influenced by them, and now my audience is kind of expecting me to say something funny on the gig, and sometimes when I don't say a funny thing, they laugh anyway, which kind of, it has happened a few times. But yeah, and the Veneziana program, the previous one, that was always like a 1 minute story, and then the compositions, and then like 1 minute a short story of some composer, which I made it funny. So it's a lot of laughter in that program. Yeah.
Do you know the German humorist and musician Helge Schneider? Have you heard of him?
I haven't.
He's really famous. He's a multi-instrumentalist, great jazz pianist, but he got famous with doing very Dadaistic music. But he always plays in the jazz trio, and the audience always comes for the jokes. But when he's not in the mood, he just really plays like 2 hours of jazz. I've seen it, and everybody's sitting there waiting for something. Okay, you haven't heard of him.
I haven't heard. Yeah. Okay, so he's unreliable. Sometimes jokes, and sometimes, yeah. I just, I try to break down the seriousness in jazz. It doesn't have to be so serious. I mean, of course, I'm very serious about my music and playing, and the situation when we are playing together. It's always intense, but we can joke. We can do some jokes about ourselves or the situation, or I'm just trying to put the people in a good mood. I mean, a jazz concert doesn't have to be a serious night, and I know that there will always be enough serious jazz. So if one Finnish guy does it differently, it cannot hurt. Yeah.
Could you imagine doing TV again?
Not really. No, I don't want to do TV, but I'm quite happy to do these 2 podcasts because I have a Finnish podcast with Jukka Perko that we started 2020, and now we have already interviewed almost every senior, like a legend status Finnish musician. So these are people in their 70s, 80s, even 90s, retired Finnish musicians. Most of them are men, but there's also a few women. And the media, the mainstream media, have totally forgotten these people. So whenever we put out an episode, we get comments, oh, I didn't know that he or she is still alive. So we really we have been capturing these people, and actually 2 of them have died during these 4 years. We have done this. So that's one thing. That's only audio, and it's in Finnish. So I won't even mention the name of that. But now for in January, I started my own podcast in English, and I will continue that, and that will focus on European jazz. So my goal is to talk to most of the important players in the European jazz. Maybe I'll end up doing it with Zoom like we are doing now, because not all of them come to Finland. Sometimes I take my cameras and mics with me, and we do episode in Germany. I did 2 episodes with Sigi Loh, and 3 episodes already in Copenhagen. We've done so. I'll continue that, and that goes to YouTube and Spotify. It's anyone who's interested can watch it, and I'm quite happy to do that. But TV is not. I'm not pushing any TV projects, and I know that in the TV world they don't come to your door to ask you that, oh, would you do this? So I'm not interested in TV, and I don't have a TV. I don't watch TV. I can't stand these format or real TV shows. So it's not that it's not in my life in any ways. But I will continue the podcast. I don't get any money from it, but it's nice to give an arena for a good musician and his thoughts or her thoughts.
But you did some TV back in the day. That's why I was mentioning it, right?
I did a lot of TV. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, part of me is grateful about those opportunities, because after I did, I think three different TV series, actually 4. After that, my face is quite well known in Finland. People buy tickets to my concerts more than most of the jazz musicians. I sell more tickets, and but as a matter of fact, at least this is true in Finland. If you are in TV a lot, that is not helping your live performer status at all. It's actually, I mean, because TV is always free. You know, you go home, you open the TV, and if I would have a music show in TV all the time, I don't think people are interested in my live concerts in Finland. And but if you are known from TV, that okay, now Iiro is coming to Oulu, okay, let's go. So they know my name, so it helps. But I think it's better not to be in TV. I want people to come to my concerts. Yeah.
Okay, so you said the next thing is the standards concerts. Is anything else on the horizon you can talk about that's upcoming or that you want to do?
I would love to continue in the field of comical opera, and as a matter of fact, this summer Kammeroper Frankfurt is performing my first opera, the one before Zaubermelodica. It's called Sanatorio Express, and it's a farce about a big soprano going to a speed clinic to lose weight, and it's totally comical and silly. just the way I want it to be. And I'm a good friend with the librettist Minna Lindgren, and we develop these stories together. So I'm very happy that Kammeroper Frankfurt picked this opera up, and they are performing it at Palmenkarten in Frankfurt. And yes, I have a couple ideas regarding comical operas, and I hope that I will continue to manage to balance these two things, composing these operas, which is quite time consuming, and also continue my jazz career. And it's not impossible. So yeah, these are my goals. And in jazz, let's see how the standard trio develops. If the promoters want it, then we are ready for service. And then next year or 26, the latest, there will be a new solo piano program, which is quite a pressure for me, because my Finnish calendar was so rich program that now there's this little voice in my head saying that it has to be better, it has to be wilder and more colorful, and it's not making things easier. But yeah, I love to continue also as a solo pianist. That's all in the table right now.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this interview. Then it was so interesting to talk to you, and congratulations on this fantastic new trio record.
Oh, thank you.